I started off as a typical early 20s post-grad in management, with the intention that I'm going to go conquer the world. And in our times, in the 90s, we were very happy if we managed to get placements with companies like, Ogilvy and Mehta, Levers, Colgate, P&G and all those things. And we were content with that, okay? So I had this mission that I want to go into these organizations and I want to make it big and all that stuff. So of course I did all of it, and my intention at that time was to go into a structured organization, something which is well planned. Like they have career paths which are very, very well planned. But only following that also I would say is not the right thing to do, because your ability to think laterally drops. Because you have a pathway, you have to keep following that pathway. So you must have an experience of all. So I decided to take structured organizations initially. I worked with O&M, I worked with Colgate-Palmolive. I moved to an Indian MNC, Parle Agro, and I found a lot of difference between international MNCs and the Indian ones, and I learned a lot even from them. Then because of my small kids, I decided not to take on full-time work, get into teaching. I did a lot of marketing consulting for a lot of firms, which have either got sold to Tatas. There was this firm called Sumeru Foods, which has got sold to Tatas now. Then there is another food firm called Tasty Choice. Then I did something for Talat Aziz called Dynamic Fusion. This was on the same lines of being an aggregator to do singing events which are fusion music. So basically you'll have, an artist who is singing Hindi, classical, fusing with some, jazz. And they would intentionally call international and Indian artists who could do these kind of things. And corporate offices and a lot of other people enjoyed this kind of fusion music. So that was also launched by us. And I did a lot of other work in tea, tea bags. And there was a lot of learning. After that I moved on. My kids grew up and I decided now I want to take a full-time plunge and I want to do something different from what I've done all this while. Of course I never sat back and relaxed ever. I taught in a lot of management institutes, and I think I taught for about 9 years. From 2003 up to 2002 to 2010, if I'm not wrong. And there was a lot of learning. The first thing that you get when you interact with youngsters like you is the ability to want to live and stay young always. So that's one thing that we learn from you. So never ever say, that the older people don't learn. Even we learn from you. So we get the energy from all you guys when we see you full of life. So there was a lot of stuff that I learned from students. And after that I decided to be an entrepreneur. I launched getmymeal.in. And that's how I had got my innovation award in the
whole issue of changing jobs was never the way of working a few decades ago. It started in the 1970s in Silicon Valley in the US, when software, hardware developers started to work in their own garages, developing a project or a product, running out of funds, taking up a job, making some money for a year or two, getting some amount of money to work on their own self for a year or two, again going out of money, taking up another job somewhere, and moving back and forth. Up till then, even in the US, till the 70s, job changes very often whenever the way that careers were built. So people joined a place, retired at the age of 60, 65, got a gold medal for their long services, and were proud to say, I'm a Ford man, I'm a General Motors man, I'm a General Electric man, and they left that company after working there for a lifetime. Now the point over here is, today, in a span of a 40-year working life, on an average, people may move 20-25 jobs. If it's good for you, nothing wrong. But the question to ask yourself is it good for you? Do people want stability or do people want growth? Growth. You think you want growth. But when you run Maslow's theory, what is the basis of Maslow's theory? You keep going to higher levels of needs. But when your lower need is affected, you fall back. So, just a year ago or 2 years ago, some of the airlines retrenched staff, and then you saw air hostesses and pursers on the street with red flags against the management wanting their jobs back. In France a couple of years ago, it's a developed country, it's a first world country. The entire country was on strike, it was closed down for about 2 months for the simple reason they have a law over there. Once you're working in a place for 2 years and you're permanent for life, you cannot be thrown out. The country wanted to change that law because the corporates did not want to give permanent employment. In that country also, in an advanced country, when stability was affected, people realized that that is the single most important thing that affects them. So nowadays, because opportunities look to be there, people do change jobs. Nothing wrong in changing jobs. But think before you change a job. Is it fitting in with your career goal? Or are you changing it because it's a 5, 10, 15% increase in salary and no other benefits which you can see? If it's the second reason, think twice, think thrice. If it's the first reason, go ahead and do it. But for the first reason to happen, there has to be something in place. What is that one thing? The career path should have been clearly
absconding. I was wondering what is this term all about, absconding. So now the next employer is recruiting the resource saying that, well, I want you to join immediately. The resource says, the sort of interviewee says that, no, but I need to have 1 month notice period. No, I'll take care of your notice period, you abscond from the job. Now please understand, when such customs are going to be inculcated, while the interview gets selected in the current employer's place, while leaving this current employer's place, the person is going to indulge in the same tactics. He is going to join another employer by absconding. And this is how we find that the culture is getting deteriorated. Today's culture is tremendously, I would say, a very typical culture where I don't find that the resources, the employees, or maybe the employers respect each other. In fact, when we were sitting in the chairs, we would tell the interviewee or we would tell the new recruit saying that, please make sure that you complete your notice period. We don't want to spoil relationship. We don't want to cross swords with your ex-employees. We want to be in the business. We want to be in sort of good corporate camaraderie. But today that doesn't happen. Maybe we don't know what could be responsible. But please understand that each one of us is ambitious, but there is no way that we can get over-ambitious. Understand that in the pursuit of over-ambition, what is going to happen is you are going to trip somewhere and fall flat on your face. Because I find that, okay, the careers are prospering, there are also careers which are literally perhaps biting dust. It is because the resources do not understand, the resources do not have a proper objective of creating critical mass around them. Understand one thing, that perhaps the employer could be such employer that you have good peers in the organization. The nature of work is good. Perhaps you get to learn a few things which might end up becoming your good resource for the future. Because entrepreneurship is going to be created from such capital alone. Entrepreneurship cannot be created merely from daydreaming, merely from chasing the dreams. You need to have certain resourcefulness. And that resourcefulness has to be learned while you start perhaps submitting to the discipline. First and the foremost is submitting to the discipline, which is very important in perhaps under every context. That submitting to the discipline, submitting to the sort of what you call rule or the dispensation there, unless you become malleable, please understand you are not prepared for life. You should be able to have such objectives that at the end of the day, I must have some addition to the capital that I possess. What should be that addition? Either I should add up to one of my contacts that I already know. I must be able to learn something new that I have not known before. If not the least, perhaps I should be able to carry more pennies in my pocket at the end of the day. Please understand, these are the ways in which you have to start formulating your own balance sheet. Life is a balance sheet. You have debit and credit for every transaction that you indulge in. You fight with your friend, it's a debit. You create a new friend, it's a credit. Make sure that, okay, while coming to the college, you perhaps hire an auto and become poorer in the pocket. That's your debit. You walk it down and you save that money, that's your credit. And as we say that every penny earned is every penny, every penny saved is every penny earned, please start practicing that. And mind you, as you start pursuing such practices, the higher ones are going to make a note of it.